DESIblitz.com.
The defining moment for this career choice was when I was probably about 7. My mum and dad spent their entire life savings on the Encyclopedia Britannica. And every day after school, my father used to sit me down and he used to say, "You're going to be a lawyer. You're going to be a lawyer." So every day I would bring out my colouring books and my writing pen and pencil, and there was no lawyer. So those dreams were pushed to one side, and I worked really hard at school to make them proud of me. I went to different universities, and then I got a job as a management consultant in the city. And it's not that I disliked my job. I just kept thinking, there's something more for me, and it's not this. So every day on the tube, the time that you could get a seat on the tube, I asked the question, what would you do if you followed your dreams? And then I started writing a novel about a family, or the main protagonist was trying to follow her dreams. And I wrote this novel. It took me about 3 years on the underground. And then one day I walked into work and I handed in my resignation. I don't know what possessed me, but I said to my boss, Fiona, I'm going to be a writer. And as I said, I worked for a management consultancy. And she quoted me all the statistics of all the people who made a successful career out of writing. Anyway, I sent off this manuscript to various publishers in the 4 weeks I had between handing in my resignation and leaving. And unfortunately, or fortunately, all the manuscripts came back rejected. And it was the actual day of my leaving, and I was packing up very slowly because I just wanted my boss to ask me to stay. And I just want to say I made some terrible mistake, but she didn't. And I thought, well, she's going to ask me when I get to the lift, because I'm actually quite good at my job. So I get to the lift, and she says to me, "Have a really good career." And the lift door closes, and all I can remember is bursting into tears and thinking, "What am I going to tell my dad?" So I got the tube home. I walked home. I was crying. I dried my tears, got to the front door, and my parents asked me their normal questions. My dad's was, "Did you have a good day at work?" And my mum's, "When are you getting married?" I thought now is not actually a good time to say that I've given a well-paid job to follow a dream and be a writer. So I tell them over dinner, and then dinner sort of came and went. And then I thought, I tell them in the morning when I've had an opportunity to sleep and think about why I've done what I've done. And then it was the morning, and then I suddenly found myself putting on a suit and pretending to go to work. And I'm quite embarrassed to say that this suit routine lasted about 8 months. And when I went to the library, when I was pretending to go to work, I ended up in the library. And there's only so many books that you can read after 8 months. So I took out a piece of paper and I thought, if I was going to write the story of myself, not where I am now, but where I'd like to be, what would it look like? And I put down, I'm a best-selling novelist. My books are translated internationally. I'm signed by a big publisher and so forth. And it was all fantastic and glowing, etc. And then I looked at where I was, which is an unemployed, well, not even a writer, but someone pretending to have a career. Anyway, so I looked at this list and I thought, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And I wrote down in 2-3 very simple sentences, I'm going to self-publish this book, make this book really popular and sell it to a big publishing company. And at the time, I knew absolutely zero about publishing. So I was in a library. I found out everything I could about self-publishing. And I found a printer. I'm going to talk about more recently, indie publishing recently as well. But this is about 20 years ago, when nobody really, self-publishing isn't like it was today. So I did all my research about publishing, small press, printing, etc. And I found a printers in Northampton. And I thought, Northampton, because when I become really popular, no one's going to be able to trace me. And I don't know why I thought that. But anyway, so I found a printer in Northampton, invested my whole deposit money that I was saving for a flat into self-publishing. And very early on, I realized the key to good self-publishing is having brilliant publicity and a great publicist. But I had run out of money, so I had no money for a publicist. So I thought about saying, I'm calling up journalists and saying, I'm Preethi Nair, I have a fantastic novel called Gypsy Masala, and it's by Preethi Nair. And it just sounded ridiculous because no one's going to buy what you're selling yourself and promoting yourself. So I was thinking of a solution around this, and I was in the library again, and I took out another sheet of paper, and I thought, if I were to have the best publicist in the world, what would she be like? And back then, I was incredibly shy and introverted, and I just listed the qualities that I didn't have, which was extrovert, fearless of rejection, wouldn't take no for an answer. And then I named her Prue. And I named her Prue because sometimes my brother used to call me Prue, and I thought, oh, I can relate to that name. I can identify with that name. So I called myself Prue. So then I set up my publishing company in my back bedroom. I called it Nine Fish. I set up my PR company again in my back bedroom, called it The Creative House. And I was pretending to go to work. But I told my parents that I was sort of working from home because the office were going through refurbishment. So they'd asked us to work from home for a certain amount of time. So it explained when the BT man came in and put in 2 phone lines, fax lines, shows how old this story is. And I got 2 internet addresses. And then I began promoting as Prue. I'm not going to say it was easy because it was one of the most horrendous things I've done in terms of putting myself out there. So the first time I called the journalist as Prue, the journalist said, hello, and I put the phone down. But after 3 months, it became quite a slick operation. So I would call up the journalist and then I would pitch the idea to the journalist, pitch the story to the journalist. And then I would change my voice and do the interview as Preethi that I had set up for myself as Prue. And so it went on. I spent months and months and months, probably about 6 months doing that, lining up press interviews. I got a few big radio interviews, I got television interviews. So for Prue set it up for myself, which is myself, obviously. And the books were being printed in Northampton. And it was a day of actually collecting the books from Northampton. And I was just feeling so elated and so happy because in spite of the level of deceit to my parents, I thought, I'm following what I want to do and it just feels right. And I remember driving up to Northampton and it was sunny and I collected my books and they just looked great. And then driving back and I couldn't get into our parents' front. I couldn't park outside the house. I'm thinking, this is really strange. Why can't I park outside the house? So I left the books in the car, walked through the front door, and to my absolute horror, they had decided because I had told my dad, I'm going to get my books, and he said, and I just sort of made it out, it was published by a small company. I didn't say that it was published by myself. But he being so incredibly proud of the book deal that I had given myself, that obviously he didn't know I'd given it to myself, had invited all our friends and family. So when I walked through that front door, it was awful because all my friends and all my family were sort of congratulating me on the book deal that I had given myself. Anyway, so I was talking to people and then I heard this strange voice. I don't often hear strange voices inside my head. And it just said, go upstairs and look at page 179. So I went upstairs and I looked at page 179 and it began chapter 13 and it was blank. So I have to just explain this. When you self-publish, you have to check your proof copies and if there are any mistakes, the liability is down to you. So I remember checking those proof copies because it's my entire investment in this book 10 times, 20 times. But anyway, there was a big mistake. There was a page missing. So I couldn't give the books out to journalists as I had promised. And I couldn't sell any of all these 3,000 copies. So I went downstairs, I saw to my guests and I was just panicking. And then after they went, I tried to call my printer, Steve, but I couldn't get a hold of him. And so it was Sunday, it went, and then it was Monday. And I called up Steve and I said, please tell me that this isn't my mistake. And there was a lot of to and fro, but basically it turned out that he had missed a printing plate. So all the copies were redundant. And I said, but that's okay, because you can print me 3,000 copies of page 179 and courier them to me for Thursday, because it's not, we're Monday now, and that's when I need to send it off to journalists, and that was when the launch was. And he said, I can't do that. I said, why not? He said, the paper takes 6 weeks to print and bind. The books take 6 weeks to print and bind, and you're asking me to do this in 4 days. And then I'm just sitting there thinking, but I've wasted like 6 months being Prue, and I've not wasted, but I've promised journalists these books. And if I don't get them to journalists when I say that I will get them to journalists, then it's sort of, they're on to the next thing. So I sat and I thought, and I said, can you print me 3,000 copies of page 179? And he said, yes. And I said, can you courier them to me? So I get them tomorrow. And he said, maybe the day after. So I said, that's fine. So I literally sat there, sticking pages of 179. This is the first edition of Gypsy Masala, by the way, into chapter 13. And I got them off to journalists when I said I would. So when you self-publish, there are so many logistical things that you have to be aware of, and there are so many potential things that could go wrong. Also, when you're running two businesses and pretending to be someone else and pretending to hold down a job, I'm not going to go through all of them because we would literally be here all night. So I just want to touch on a couple of things that went wrong, very horribly wrong. So I was doing all the interviews that Prue and myself had set up for myself. And I was on LBC. It was my biggest radio interview to up until that day. And the presenter said to me, oh, so Preethi, where can we get hold of copies of Gypsy Masala? And it's going to sound so incredibly naive, but I had overlooked the entire distribution network. I haven't overlooked it. I have to explain how publishing works. So publishers have huge sales teams that go out and sell in these books. So the bigger the advance you get, say someone's paid £200,000 for your book, you know that a sales team is going to go hard and promote that book. So they go to shops and they buy up bookshelf space, they buy up window space, and you as a consumer don't know this. So you might go into a shop and you might see 100 copies of Gypsy Masala, and you might think, oh, wow, that book is doing really well. Well, in actual fact, it's not doing really well. They've just positioned that, they bought that space to make it look like it's doing really well. Anyway, I knew none of this back then. So back to the interview, and she says, so where can we get hold of copies of Gypsy Masala? And I took a deep breath and I said, in all good bookshops. And then I got a travel card, and in the space of 10 days, I visited, it was probably 200 bookshops. I did 20 bookshops. Was it 20 bookshops a day? Roughly about that, like between 15 and 20 a day. And I'd say, I'm Preethi Nair. I know you don't know me, but please stock my book. And bookshops, I don't know if this is the case now, but used to look down on people who self-publish their books. So a lot of them just used to look at me, nod, and put it behind the counter. And when I was doing this, I saw a man from the corner of my eye watching me sell in, and he was in pretty much quite a lot of the shops. And I thought, oh, I wonder what he's doing. I'll come back to him later. So that was one of the problems. So with the rest of the 2,500 copies that I got, I went to the London Book Fair. I got a stand right at the very last moment when the organisers said it takes 18 months to get a stand and to have a presence there. And at the very last minute, she called me to say there's been a cancellation. And it's the only time that I actually revealed to any of my friends that I was behind it, because basically I needed bodies. I needed someone to be Prue, and I needed to be myself, and I needed someone to be the marketing director. So I called up two of my friends and I said, this is going to sound really weird, but please humour me. And I told them the story up until that point. And I said, all we have to do is go to the London Book Fair and have fun and give out books. So we went to the London Book Fair, giving out books, and we created a stir, because back in those days, nobody was giving out hard copies of books. It was quite expensive to give out. And we started giving them out, and we created such a buzz. And at that London Book Fair, I met a group of ladies called the Calendar Girls and Calendar Women. And they're not calendar women, they're called Calendar Girls, but they're a group of women who posed naked for a WI calendar, which then went global. And one of them came up to me and she said, I know that you're doing this all by yourself. And if you ever need any help or advice, you make sure you call me. And she gave me her card. So anyway, so it's all going quite well. Publicity has been lined up. Distribution has been lined up. And then we are hit with, I don't think any of you are going to remember this, won't have any consequences in your life, but there was the petrol crisis back in 2000 where you could not transport goods for love nor money. So basically, there was a pull from the bookshops. So the bookshops wanted my book. There was press coverage. So I had brilliant press coverage in most of the national papers, radio, television, for Gypsy Masala. But the books were stuck in the warehouse. So how it works is you have product placement, you have the book in the shop, you have articles that come out. This is pre-Amazon, by the way. It works very differently now. You have the book in the shop. So customer walks in, remembers an article, purchases the book. But unfortunately, that didn't happen with me because I couldn't get the books from the distribution center into the bookshops. And it was 18 months up until that point. And I thought, I have done absolutely everything I can. I have given my heart, I have given my soul. Someone up there just does not want me to be a writer. So I was thinking about it. And I was heavily in debt as well, because obviously I wasn't properly working. And so I was putting away my things, thinking, okay, I'm going to go and get a proper job. And I came across the card that one of the calendar girls had given me. There's a lady called Tricia Stewart. And I looked at this card and I thought, well, 6 months have gone by since our meeting. Shall I call her? Shall I not call her? What shall I do? So what shall I do? So I gave her a call, and she's based up in Yorkshire. And then I said, it's Preethi, and she had no idea who I was. And as I started to talk to her and tell her the story, I started to cry because I didn't realize how much I was carrying. And at the end of it, she said, you know what I think you need to do? I think you need to come up to Yorkshire. And with no disrespect to Yorkshire, because it's a fantastic place, I said, I'm really sorry, but why would I want to come up to Yorkshire? And she said, I think you should make a decision from a point of strength, not a point of weakness, and you've got a lot to think about. And we're going off to promote the calendar for 6 weeks in America, so you have access to our cottages if you want. And this was a complete stranger offering me a home. And I just thought, do you know what? I'm going to take her up on it. I'm going to say yes to it. And she said, if you decide to come, I will put you in touch with my agent, Diana, and why don't you go and see Diana? And so I drove up to go to Yorkshire, and I drove up to see her agent, Diana. And she said, oh my God, I've heard all about you and that Prue story. The first thing I need to tell you is that you need to let go. You need to let go of that story, of what happened, of what didn't happen, of what you expected, and you need to begin again. And if you decide to write again, you need to write truthfully, you need to write from the heart, and you need to write like there's no expectation of being published. Just tell your story. I have a fantastic family story that spans 3 generations. Fictionalize it, tell it, and if nobody reads it, it doesn't matter because you've got it out of your system. So I went up to Yorkshire, and I was reading this book, by the way. It's a brilliant book called The Artist's Way, and it's all about getting your creativity out. All you have to do is write, walk everywhere. So I was doing that, and I wrote my second novel, or my second manuscript, 100 Shades of White, in 6 weeks. And I took the manuscript down, and I gave it to Diana, and I said, I've done it. And she said, great, now you can go and get a proper job. And we'll see where it goes. So I was putting together, it was probably about 3 or 4 weeks later, and I was putting together my CV very creatively, embellishing what I'd done for the last 18 months to 2 years. And Diana calls and she says, are you sitting down? I said, yeah. She said, I've sent the book to various publishers and the book is going to auction. And so what that means is traditional publishers, they sort of view you as a commodity and how marketable and sellable you are. So you go in and you meet these huge teams. So you'll meet the sales team, you'll meet the marketing director, you'll meet the editorial director, you'll meet every single director, and they assess how good you are at marketing, sales, and how sellable you are as an author, etc., etc. So I went to the various publishers in London, and I ended up at HarperCollins. And I remember quite clearly huge glass doors, and we were sitting around this enormous table, and then there was a sales director, the marketing director, the PR director, the editorial director, and I had met every single one of them as Prue. I'd met the PR director, was like gate crash various parties to learn how to do publicity. I met the editorial director at a party. I met the sales director because he was the man who was doing quality control when I was selling in my books painfully in the bookshops. And he, to his credit, he'd said, there's a crazy woman coming along, and to save you the spiel of her awful pitch, just stock her book. So he literally made it possible for bookshops to stock my book. And he was there. And so I found, well, they found the situation quite humorous. I less so because of all the struggle I had to do to get onto that table. But they offered me a 3-book deal, which I took. And I was elated and I was happy, and it was everything I ever wanted. Before I moved on to stage 2 of the story, which was what was it actually like being published by them, I have to tell you what happened to Prue. Prue was shortlisted as Publicist of the Year for the great job that she had done. And I remember getting the invite for the party and thinking, oh, God forbid I win. I can't thank my author. It's been a dream to work with, myself, the marketing person, my editorial director, and all the other people who have helped. So I didn't go, and I didn't end up winning. But the person who ended up winning that year became my publicist at HarperCollins. So how it works, I have no idea. Anyway, I'm going to go on to the second part of the story, what it's like to be traditionally published. And then I'll move on to what it's like to do indie publishing today. But if you've got any Q&A at this point, please put them in the chat box. Anyway, so it turned out to be a brilliant experience too. And oh my God, I've completely lost control of this, and I'm not really enjoying this experience. And it's quite heartbreaking in a sense. So I decided to go and do something completely different. And I just did not want to write again. So I thought a lot of effort, as I said, goes into it, but your heart and soul goes into writing. And I thought, that's it, I'm not doing it. So I set up a company that very randomly teaches leaders how to tell stories. And I ran that company, and I still run that company quite successfully for about 7 years. And then I was getting a bit, it's time for my next challenge. But I didn't want to write a book. I didn't want to write a novel. I was just so determined not to write a novel. So what I did, and it's going to sound a little bit bizarre, but I thought of this thing that I was most afraid of. And so I'm most afraid of going on stage. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to put on a one-woman show. I'm going to write a one-woman show because that's not technically writing a book. So same theory or principle. I booked a theatre in the West End. I spent 18 months training to put on the show. I put on the show. It sold out for the first 2 nights, and then I put it on for 5 nights. It sold out for the 5 nights. Again, an up and down journey. I'm not going to make it sound all lovely. It was terrifying in equal measures of exhilarating and heartbreaking and all of those things. And I went on a massive journey. And then I got offered a big theatre in the West End to do it. And I thought, I just did this to overcome something that I needed to overcome. It was fear and being safe and being nicely safe and pretending that safety was a good thing. And I also did it because I didn't want to write this novel that this character required, and the character was going, put it on. Anyway, so what happened was I didn't put the show onto a bigger audience, but the producer of The Crown came to see it, and she said, come in and speak to our television people. So I spoke to television people, and then we had various projects two projects, make it sound like a lot. It was two projects in development. And that was where I was at. And then lockdown happened. The two projects that I was working on got shelved because for various reasons. And I thought, oh, right, I'm going to have to write this novel because it's just been there. So I wrote the novel. It took quite a while to write the novel. And then I was also homeschooling. And I'm telling you this was quite relevant to what happened next. My daughter was having problems with maths because the teacher said that her maths was rubbish. So I took her off the curriculum and I said to her, if you wanted to start a business, what business would you start? And she said, oh, I'd love to make lip balm. So I said, oh, let's make lip balm. So I spent most of the lockdown making lip balm with my daughter and teaching her about maths, about percentages, turnover, etc. She was 10 at the time, maybe 9 at the time. And then I said, oh, about English, why don't we write a story together? Why write the story and you edit it? And you tell me what you think. So I wrote a fictitious story about this little girl who sets up a business and goes on this magical adventure. And she loved it, and she gave it to her friends, and her friends all loved it. And I thought, oh, maybe there is a book in here. But I don't want to. I'm just so determined not to give it to a publisher because I thought, I don't want to go through that again. I want to self-publish this book. So I had this little idea. And then I finished my book 4, which is called Sorry, the Whole 5 Yards. And I contractually had to hand it to HarperCollins to have first refusal. And then they read it and they offered me a book deal. And I'm telling you, one hard, not the hardest thing, but quite hard. I turned it down. And I turned it down because I thought, I don't want to go through that again. I really, this book I've invested so much into and I want it a certain way. I think I'm going to self-publish it. So I thought, oh, what I'm going to do is I'm going to test out self-publishing because now self-publishing has moved on 20 years and it's all digital and everyone made it sound so easy. So I thought I'm going to self-publish Angeli's story first, the children's book, and see how it all works. And I'm not going to go into the technicality of self-publishing today in the digital age, but I did all the research. I joined Alliance of Independent Authors. If you're looking at self-publishing, Alliance of Independent Authors is the first place to start because it's people who have self-published with amazing success and they've gone on to sell millions, some not millions, but, you know, they're a great source of information, nice community, they help each other. I had to teach myself all about the process of self-publishing now because it's still the same. You find a copy editor, you have it edited professionally, so you find professional people. I actually have quite a few ex-HarperCollins team helping me copy edit, put the book together, do cover design, etc., etc. If you want to ask me any technical questions, I'm happy to answer any technical questions, but I don't want to go into the technical aspects of it right now. Anyway, so put this book together, and what I did was, sorry, I'm just being alerted to the fact that I have some questions. I'm just going to see what questions I have to answer. I have questions, but sorry, chat. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for asking those questions. I'll come back to them. So basically, I forgot where I was now. Put the book together, put Angeli's story together, and it's coming out. It was meant to come out tomorrow, but it takes. Please know that everything that you want to do takes like double the time that you think it's going to take. So it's coming out on October the 19th. Sari actually got bought. The book that I'm going to self-publish next year, actually got bought by a big German company because I'm actually published as well in Germany, and the agent, I still have an agent, or I changed agents, but the agent read the manuscript and said I can sell this in other territories. So it got bought in Germany. So what I have to say is, I've got so many things to say. Self-publishing is a choice that you alone have to make, and the way you make it is you have to know why you're doing it, or not even self-publishing or even traditional publishing. You have to know, why is it I'm doing this? What is my why? And your why will determine how you're going to do it. So there are so many different routes open to you. If you are an author that has been rejected by publishing companies, please don't take it personally. I mean, there is a system to publishing. You have to know the system. You have to find agents. It's about who you know, unfortunately. It's not necessarily that your work is bad. Your work could be bad. I don't know. But, you know, if you truly believe in your work and believe that good work will out at the end, then don't accept that really. Don't accept the rejection. See it as redirection and go off and do it yourself. But self-publishing is so much more easier than it was 20 years ago. It's literally getting your work to the highest quality that it can be and mastering a bit of technology. And if I can master technology, anyone can master technology, uploading files, knowing metadata, etc., etc. But there are resources for all of that. If you go with a traditional publisher, good, great. Know that that's only half the thing. You have to still put in the work. How they push you very much, how they push you out into bookshops, how they push you out in terms of media, how they push you out is very, very much dependent on the advance that they've paid you. The higher the advance, the more they're going to push you out. If they paid you a couple of £1,000, they've got authors that they've spent, you know, 300, 400, 500 plus £1,000 on, and you've got to think they've got limited resources. Who are they going to push? And you know, my only thing about, not my only message, but you have to believe in possibility, and you have to be able to believe that, you know, you are, whatever path you are going to take, you are going to come up with obstacles. Just because you get traditionally published, that's not the end of it. And just because you self-publish, that's not the end of it either. And a lot of this comes down to resilience, and how resilient are you, and what are you going to put into it? And you know, this is going to sound so very, very cliched, but at the end of the day, it is all about the journey. It's about what you get to do, the person that you have to become to do those things. The character arc of where you started and when you end up is phenomenal. And that growth is literally, it's priceless. It's absolutely priceless. So dream big. Know that anything is possible. Take one step towards whatever you want to do. And serendipity, it's amazing. You know, the people that you get to meet, who helps you along the way, but you have to risk. And that's where I'm going to leave it. Oh no, I'm going to actually leave it at what happened to the film script. So I think this is quite. So two of my projects got shelved, my film projects. And so I entered a competition with the BBC / Sony, and the prize was to have your pilot made. So I rewrote my script and I rewrote the treatment and I sent it in and I won. So that's also currently what I'm working on. I'm working on my first pilot for the BBC. So how it all works, I don't know, but it's all worth the risk and the adventure. Thank you. So please, please, please ask me questions, because there's nothing more than just standing here thinking, okay, what should I say or what should I not say? So put all your questions in the Q&A. I'm happy to answer anything. I would have liked to see you, but Bradley, I would love to read your story. Have you written it yet? That's what I'm writing for the BBC. I'm writing a fictionalized version of that adventure. Thank you, Bridget, for your comment. Okay. Anyone else? What? Oh, thank you, Preethi. What is your proudest moment? My proudest moment was I was invited to do a conference, and up until that point, it was to talk about my journey. And up until that point, I was doing library events, little library events, where I would probably speak to 8 people, 9 people, and I would have children twirling in front of me, and you know, the whole library distraction, and I would have to talk through it. And I used to sit there thinking, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? I'm doing this for the love of story, and I'm doing this for the love of my books. That's why I'm doing this. So then I get invited to this conference, and I didn't ask very much about it. And I heard the fee for the conference, and I was like, that's more than I've been paid for anything. So I thought, oh, probably quite a big conference, but didn't do any research as I should have done. And it was a conference where I was sharing a stage with Bob Geldof, Kevin Spacey, the head of Green and Blacks, and the head of some other big global company. And I got there and I thought, oh, I am such a fake, I'm such a fraud. How is this going to work? Anyway, they go out into breakout rooms, but all the participants, I think there's about 2,000 participants, they choose which speaker they want to go to. And I thought, I'm going to get 4 people to come to my speech because no one knows who I am. No one knows what I do. Anyway, so I was in this breakout room and we had 2 sessions. In the first session, I probably got about 20 people in that session. And I thought, oh, well, 20 people, that's good. I told them my story, blah, went really well. And then in the afternoon session, I went for a toilet break and I came back and I couldn't get into my room. I thought, why can't I get into my room? Anyway, I couldn't get into my room because it was packed. It was packed full of delegates who wanted to come and see me. And I was in utter awe because if you know how much I faked it or how much I still do fake it, and to be on that stage and to be able to do that, that was probably one of my proudest moments. So thank you, Praveen. That was a very long-winded way of answering your question. Michelle, do you miss Prue? You know, I resurrect her from time to time. I'm currently using her now to do all the marketing for the children's books in a very different way. She's not called Prue, she's got something else. I haven't quite mastered the children's book world yet, but that's one to do. What is your favorite marketing tip? That's from Hanson. Where is my favorite marketing tip? Oh, wow. My favorite marketing tip is to write articles and to write them and to then just put a little bit of a blurb of what you're doing. So you write something that means something to you. For example, recently I wrote about the importance of journaling. And then at the end, I just put, I'm going to be doing this talk. And that helps, I think. Karen asks, when did I finally tell my parents? Well, it's a bit of a difficult one, that one. Because I was going to appear in the, let me just check. I was meant to appear in the Sunday Express, and there was going to be a double life feature on me in the Sunday Express. And the title was My Double Life. And my parents had absolutely no idea that I was going to go into this whole story of the double life. But anyway, I knew it was coming out on Monday for Sunday, and I couldn't tell them. And on Saturday night, they were both asleep, and I knew that they were asleep, and I told them. And I thought, you know what, at least I've told them. And the fallout from that was quite big. So, because my father always said to me, you tell the truth, always. Obviously. But anyway, and then when I did go and sign my free book deal, I ran home to my dad and to my mum. My dad said, when are you going to give up the hobby? And I think you have the intelligence to work in the Foreign Office. Leave it there. Do you think publishers are more open to South Asian writers now? And are major publishers putting money and effort to promote these writers? And what are the barriers as a writer? Possibly. I can't answer that. I did get accepted for book 4. I think it's a brilliant book, but I don't know if that's because I'm a South Asian writer. I think we must be very careful that we are not trends and phases and fads, and that now we are of the moment. So let's go and sign up loads of South Asian authors. But I mean, if that's the case, it's great for South Asian authors, but there has to be some consistency built into the model of publishing. It has to be a far more inclusive model. People at the top, people at the very top, on boards, etc., have to be far more inclusive than they are. That's what I'm going to say. Winnie, I know Winnie. Great story, inspiring. You talked about independent versus traditional publishing. Do you have thoughts on new forms of publishing that come up, called hybrid publishing, which seems to be a mixture of where author pays some money production and publishers will publish. I always think, oh, this might be the wrong advice, but please don't put your money into someone else to do the work for you. Whenever someone says, part with money and I will publish with you, just be very, very, very aware. Because what independent publishing does, when you do it yourself, you get a chunk of the royalty. So if you're on Amazon, for example, right, and there are many different platforms, I'm just saying Amazon, you get 70% of the royalties. I don't know what the hybrid model is, but please check it out, because what you don't want to do is spend £3,000 to £5,000 to find out that you're on like some 7% or 2% royalty commission. It just doesn't work. So don't do it, is my advice, but go and find out more about it. I just think be skeptical. I mean, I think there are other publishers. I don't know enough about them. Like, no, I'm not going to speak about them because I don't know enough about them, but do the research. I'm not really the best person to ask, but whenever I hear money being parted, it rings alarm bells. Hi, Preethi. Sabina, thank you for your stories. Do you offer any training workshops or book writing courses for BAME women? And are you affiliated with any BAME publishers in the UK? I'd like to attend. No, not currently. But if I run open workshops, then I'm more than happy to put you down for one. I don't run them very often, but from time to time I do. But yeah, happy to, if you share your email address, put you down. And so thank you, listeners. Thank you very much. Thank you, Winnie. Thank you. Any more comments before I go? No. Well, thank you very much for coming and spending an hour or so of your time with me. So feedback is always welcome. If you'd like to get in touch, please email me. Always happy to respond to questions that you didn't really feel comfortable in asking or didn't want to ask. Thank you.